Warning: this video was created for educational purpose. The main goal is to provide scientific and public health related information in an understandable, easily digestible manner, with a portion of humor. Might contain disturbing disease-related images and information. Hello and welcome. In today's video we will talk about mercury, most importantly about its effects on human health. Mercury exists naturally as a man-made contaminant. Mercury poisoning is the result of exposure to mercury or mercury compounds, resulting in various toxic effects which depends on its chemical form and route of exposure. But let's start at the beginning, talking through each aspect in more detail. Mercury is ranked third by the US Government Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry of the most toxic elements or substances on the planet to arsenic and lead, that continues to be dumped into our waterways and soil, spilled into our atmosphere and consumed in our food and water. Soil contaminated by mercury or the redistribution of contaminated water has the potential to enter the food chain through plant and livestock. Once in the food chain, mercury can bioaccumulate, causing adverse effects to human health. The average whole-body biological half-life of inhaled mercury is approximately 60 days. However, once oxidized, the potential exists for bioaccumulation in the renal cortex, liver, and especially the brain. It is estimated that the half-life of mercury in the brain can be as long as 20 years. The most common form of organic mercury is methylmercury, which is the major source of organic mercury found in the ecosystems. Methylmercury is easily taken up by lower organisms, tends to work its way up the food chain, and exhibits a proclivity to bioaccumulate in fish. Fish appear to be primary source of methylmercury poisoning in humans. Mercury exposure has been associated with the induction of over 250 symptoms, which can complicate accurate diagnosis. The diagnosis happens by, firstly, blood analysis, secondly, urinalysis, thirdly, hair analysis, and optionally tissue biopsy. Indeed, it is thought that shortly after entering the body, that mercury quickly becomes tightly bound in the brain, spinal cord, ganglia, and peripheral motor neurons. Mercury is reported to induce DNA damage. Mercury has also been shown to induce oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction. And as you remember, mitochondria are the power plants of our cells. Mercury accumulation in the heart is thought to contribute to cardiac diseases, such as cardiomyopathy. In individuals who died from idiopathic dilated cardiomyopathy, levels of mercury were found to be on average 22,000 times higher than in individuals who died of other forms of heart disease. Furthermore, there is a good evidence linking mercury with anemia, including hemolytic anemia and aplastic anemia, as mercury is thought to compete with iron for binding to hemoglobin, which can result in impaired hemoglobin formation. When working with mercury, chronic inhalation of even low concentrations can produce tremors, sleep disturbances, and impaired cognitive skills. Mercury can cause damage of kidneys. Furthermore, its body burden has also been associated with or implicated in a number of immune and autoimmune conditions, including allergic disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, autoimmune thyroiditis. It is clear that mercury is accumulated in nervous tissues all through the body. Its effects in the central nervous system include depression, paranoia, extreme irritability, hallucinations, and inability to concentrate, memory loss, tremors of the hands, head, lips, tongue, jaw, and eyelids, weight loss, perpetually low body temperature, drowsiness, headaches, insomnia, and fatigue. Mercury can cause immune, sensory, neurological, motor, and behavioral dysfunctions similar to traits defining or associated with autism, leading some to suggest that many cases of autism may be a form of mercury poisoning. Low exposure levels of mercury may affect the endocrine system, such as the thyroid system. mercury blocks thyroid hormone production by occupying iodine-binding sites and inhibiting or altering hormone actions, leading to the impairment of body temperature control, hypothyroidism, thyroid inflammation, and depression. Additionally, there is a broad variety of effects on the reproductive system. In males, mercury can have adverse effects on spermatogenesis, epididymal sperm count, and testicular weight. Evidence also exists linking mercury with erectile dysfunction. In females, mercury has been shown to inhibit the release of follicular-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone from the anterior pituitary, which in turn can affect estrogen and progesterone levels, leading to ovarial dysfunction, painful or irregular menstruation, premature menopause, and tipped uterus. Furthermore, mercury poisoning is also associated with the fetotoxicity, also known as teratogenicity, which can present as miscarriage, spontaneous abortions, stillbirth, and low birth weights. In the neonate, mercury exposure during pregnancy has been linked to neural tube defects, craniofacial malformations, delayed growth, and others. Mercury is known to cross the placenta, where it can inhibit fetal brain development, resulting in cerebral palsy, also known as paralysis, and psychomotor retardation in the later stages of development. Many exposed feti go on to develop infantile cerebral paralysis, and there may be a relation with the development of Minamata disease, which we will talk about in more detail. But first, let's have a look at the really shocking results of a study which included the following signs and symptoms. A study of 64 children exposed in utero to mercury and showing mercury-associated damage included the following signs and symptoms. Mental retardation, 100% of observed patients. Primitive reflexes, 100%. Strabismus, 77%. Cerebellar ataxia, 100%. Dysarthria, 100%. Chorea and athetosis, 95%. Deformed limbs, 100%. Hypersalivation, 95%. Epileptic attacks, 82%. And growth disorders, 100% of patients. It has been reported that there is a much higher accumulation of mercury in the fetal brain tissue than in the maternal brain tissue, rendering a developing organism highly vulnerable to such exposures. And now let's move on to the Minamata disease. Minamata is a small town facing the Yatsushiro Sea, also called Shiranui Sea, in Kumamoto Prefecture of Kyushu Island in southern Japan, and is abundant in fishing resources. It all started when in 1956 a girl of 5 years old was found to have unusual neurological symptoms. Minamata disease is a methylmercury poisoning associated with the daily consumption of large quantities of fish and shellfish heavily contaminated with the toxic chemical. The company responsible for the Minamata epidemic was the chemical company Chiso. Methylmercury was generated as a byproduct in reaction chambers for manufacturing acetaldehyde that was synthesized using mercury as a catalyst. The factory waste was suspected as the source of the causative agent, but it seemed difficult to prove it. Ironically, in this period Chiso intended to increase the production of acetaldehyde, for which there was much demand as a raw material of octanol, a chemical used in polyvinyl chloride (PVC) manufacturing. Engineers of the company assumed that if there were any toxicity contained in the waste, it could be eliminated by dilution with a large excess amount of seawater. Remember, right? Soon, the epidemic became a social problem due to a lack of willingness to take responsibility and to attack the issue. Increasing pressure of fishermen's associations on Chiso led to an agreement of fishery compensation and furthermore resulted in a ceremony celebrating the completion of the waste liquid processing facility called Cyclator. Kiichi Yoshioka, the president of Chiso, reported in the ceremony that the completion of the Cyclator had perfected the company's waste liquid management. He showed drinking a glass of the so-called treated water as the waste passed through the facility in front of the assembled guests, including prefecture's governor. Remember, right? Furthermore, in 1959, Chiso also made an agreement with the Patients Association consisting of 78 patients and some of their families. Chiso, however, emphasized that the payments were made as a token of the company's sympathy for the patients, not as compensation for any damage. Sympathy? Everything we have seen so far in the first part of this video, cardiac and kidney disorders, reproductive disorders, phytotoxicity, and so on, was equally characteristic of the Minamata epidemic. It was 12 years later that the government finally issued an official statement confirming that wastewater from Chiso containing methyl mercury was the major cause of this ecological disaster. In order to receive compensation and relief, official certification of patients was required to be eligible to receive compensation from the companies responsible, Chiso and Showa Denko Kanose. The total number of certified cases was nearly 3,000 by 2005, and as many as 12,300 cases became recipients of aid in 1997. To finish up, I want you to have a look at this figure. Number of application, which is shown as white bar for the official certification, and of certified patients, which is shown as blue bar, of Minamata disease up to 2000. I hope you can make up your mind on that. I've made up mine.